I tell you what, this was something that nobody really alive had ever dealt with, that type of experience. And it seems like we're having to deal with stuff like that more and more, as a species. You know what I mean? Um, so, gosh, I mean, I tell you what, the corny stuff like believe in yourself and work hard, what I mean, never give up. There's a reason why that stuff is kind of cliche because it's all really true. You really do need to believe in yourself and you really do need to never give up. One thing that I learned over the last handful of years is that good time or I'm sorry, bad times, good times never last, but bad times don't either. So even though you may, there's times of, lean, and times of plenty. So, things may be rough, but you will always come out of it. You always come out of it. You always can find a way out, and you can always find something, some way to better yourself and to grow from the experience. So enjoy the good times and don't despair in the bad times and never give up on yourself. Never give up on yourself.
Was a decent. I mean, that board you have right there, that has more keys on it than my keyboard does. So, mixing board, yeah.
It is nice. It is nice, and that's another thing. I've got a couple buddies who have spent time running sound professionally, so I'm always like, hey, why isn't this sounding the way this, or what should I do with this or something like that, what I mean? So that's been really nice, and online having different people that I can just ask, or different forums where you can just drop a question. Hey, I mean, I may sound like an idiot, but why is this? And somebody's probably going to be like, you are an idiot, but this is the answer you're looking for. So I was like, hey, at least I can get the answer.
So I may be an idiot, sir, but there's one thing I am not, sir, and that, sir, is an idiot. That was a little Family Guy joke. So, as you were mentioning about GarageBand earlier, I think, he has to be a Mac user because I don't think they allow that on Windows.
Yeah, no, you're right. I am a Mac user. I for a long time I was like a Windows guy, and one of my buddies still is. But when I was starting this process a few years ago, the same guitarist buddy that turned me on to the Focusrite also said that basically that with a Mac, so much comes in-house with the initial the purchase of the computer, because I told him I want simple, I mean, I don't want to get real confused right away, I mean, there's plenty of time for that later on down the road. So I want it user friendly. And so this was the direction he pointed me in, and so now I've kind of gotten used to it, and so then like I said, now I've got I used to have an Android, now I've got an iPhone, so I've kind of I guess you could say just become like a Mac kind of user because of the ease, the user friendliness, I mean. Between all the devices and stuff like that, because that's one thing I definitely need it to be is simple, so so that really, that seemed like the best thing for me. And then once I got used to it, I just figured I want to keep going in this direction, I mean. So like you said, with GarageBand and Final Cut, there's a lot I can do. So I'll probably stick with these, with Apple stuff for a while. So, but, never say never. You never know.
Yeah, that's for sure. I would say Final Cut's always been good to me, even though it seems like when you do multi-drummer collaborations, it doesn't seem to like function as good as it probably should. And I don't know if it's just because it's like too much I want to say probably on the hard drive, to be honest, because I did like 9 drummer collaborations before. And that's always a pain to actually deal with because sometimes they can still be playing to the same track, but yet somewhere along the lines, somehow the audio does not come out right for some reason.
Well, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of hard to do. Is the editing part of a collaboration has got to be tough. So
I would say with 2, it's not too bad, especially if you're just like splitting between like, okay, I'll play this part, he'll do this one, and then keep jumping back and forth. So that much is a little bit easier. So
yeah,
I can see why. Actually, you never really got into Logic Pro because I know that's part of an Apple product as well.
You're right. That is like I feel like that's the next logical step for me as far as audio software. And basically, I guess you could say that that's kind of inevitable. And like with going from iMovie to Final Cut, the things I was wanting to do with like with iMovie, you could only do picture in picture, and I wanted to actually like switch whole angles and be able to have more than just two views and stuff like that. So once I got to the point where I felt like I had reached the limits of what I could do, what I wanted from iMovie, then now it's time to step forward. And the same will be like, for GarageBand into Logic Pro. Excuse me. But it seems like audio has been a little bit trickier for me to I guess you could say master. That is definitely the next logical step. I'm getting there. But I feel like as of right now, I'm still learning enough about GarageBand to where when I take that step forward, I want to be as experienced, I guess, and prepared as I can. Because just going from iMovie to Final Cut Pro, these are both the same, both Apple products. There's enough of a jump there to where, oh wow, there's a whole new, whole new realm of capabilities here. You know what I mean? So like I said, I like to, get as experienced as I can with GarageBand to where I feel like, okay, now I can't go any further with it. And then then I'll take the next step. So
I think I'll definitely like Logic Pro. There's a lot to it at first, and I bet I'm probably not using a whole bunch of it too. Some of which allows you to like really manipulate sounds to like make it sound like real spacey or well, probably divine for lack of a better term. So you can see what I mean. So yeah. I'll leave it up to you how to decide, but it is pretty cheap. I think out of all the DAWs that are out there, I'd say Logic's like one of the more cheaper ones for $200. I think that's only for Mac users. I don't know if they allow it for anyone else. So I thought they did, but it was like you had to pay a little bit more compared to like a Mac user. So not just too sure. Okay. But don't take my word for it. We'll see what happens. So,
yeah.
Before we do move on, I did forget to ask. It is good to see you are doing well. It's good to see COVID didn't really impact you guys too well, so that's all good.
I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
No worries. For the next question, I forgot to ask, what brand are your sticks?
I use the ProMark Mike Portnoy signature. And I have used that for probably, oh gosh, it's been a good, I bet it's been 20 years. Probably maybe as long as he's had the signature stick. I always kind of, when I was younger, teenager, I was using like 2Bs and, just playing big, heavy metal sticks, and then I, would go to a 5B, trying to get, a little bit more articulation. My style started to evolve. I went to college and, had to join the school jazz band, which was like, whole, I totally, that's a whole new direction. So the old, heavy metal stuff didn't always apply. You know what I mean? So I, f- I found rather than have, which a lot of guys do. I mean, and it's good to have a bunch of different sizes and, mallets and, brushes and whatever in your bag. Um, but I also wanted to find something where I could cover a wide range with one kind of stick, basically. And in addition to like my issues with my foot and stuff, I've had some hand injuries over the years, and broken fingers and dislocations and stuff like that, to where I started needing something that I could control a little bit better. And the Portnoy signature stick, I think it's about a 563 diameter, maybe a 590. So it's not real thick, but it's also, I think it's still bigger than maybe a 7A. Uh, and but the shaft of the stick, it maintains that thickness longer. So when you start getting towards the tip, you know it doesn't get like real thin right away. Because he likes to flip them over and use the butt ends and stuff, and what I mean. So I like that because for me it felt really comfortable, and I got like a good mix of durability and playability. So I've really I try and kind of stock up on them, because that was another thing during the pandemic. Weird things got hard to obtain, and so for about a year I couldn't get any Mike Portnoy sticks. So then I just started, I'll buy 10 at a time now. But I really do enjoy that stick. I've used it for a long time, and that really consistently, that's really about the only stick I use. So
I guess what do you make of him being back in Dream Theater after so long?
that's exciting. That's exciting. Because, now Mangini, of course, is, well, I'm a magician. But Mike Portnoy, kind of I don't want to say heart and soul of Dream Theater, but man, when that group is together, I mean, it's just a different vibe. I mean, and he's such a, as an individual, as a person, not just a drummer. He's such a colorful, vibrant person. I mean, that you can tell that he adds influence to whatever project he's involved in. You know what I mean? So this is really exciting to have the old Dream Theater back. I mean? And like I said, anything he's involved in, it's going to have some, mind blowing drumming. So, yeah, this will be cool. Bring it on.
It'll be interesting to see. I guess it means they got to do a lot more of their older materials they did way back in the day.
Yeah, that would be cool too. Yeah.
All right, we'll see what happens. That's pretty cool. I didn't know he actually signed a ProMark stick, actually. So that's actually interesting.
He does. Yeah. Like I said, it's a signature stick. It's a really cool stick. For me, it's perfect.
I always thought when it came to like signature sticks, they would like do their own. I guess one of the distributors would just set it out there for people to do. Because I know Joey Jordison, the formerly of Slipknot, he had actually did his own signature sticks too. But I think his was his own. I don't know who served as the distributor though.
I want to say he had a head sticks, the black nylon ones. But then I also think that the last few years, like after he had left Slipknot, some of his endorsements changed. Because I think he was he might have been doing Pearl drums at the end. But so yeah, but I'm not sure if they were his own or not. But I want to say for a while they might have been a head sticks, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
I think a couple of friends of mine actually did have Joey's signature sticks. So I think it was Kieran, and I forget who else. I know Kieran was like real big into him. So Kieran, when you eventually see this podcast episode, let us know about the signature sticks. So
yeah.
All right, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And may he rest in peace too. So it's a shame we lost him too soon.
Oh man, yeah, that was kind of a blow. Um, you know what I mean? Because of his age, you know what I mean? Because he and I we were the same age, you know what I mean? And, uh, and then a couple years later, I would have my own, another brush with, death myself. So yeah, definitely way too soon. There's been a handful, like Neil Peart a few years ago, uh, that, way too soon. You know what I mean? There was still a lot left that he could have given us too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess speaking of which, would you say those drummers really influenced you, or were there plenty of others who influenced you in terms of your drumming
Oh,
style?
yeah. Well, no, oh man. I mean, we could be here a while. uh, but yeah, definitely both Joey, um, and even Jay Weinberg, now he's no longer, he's a former Slipknot drummer. Um, uh, yeah, definitely. Gosh, Danny Carey, is a very, very big influence of Portnoy. And being an '80s, big four guy, Lars, Charlie, Dave Lombardo, you know what I mean, um, and Paul Bostaph, you know, um,
Which one for Megadeth? Because I think it was more Nick Menza in the '80s, right?
I was gonna say probably more Nick Menza. Um, I've reacquainted myself recently with Gar Samuelson's technique and his jazzy touch. Um, but I probably just, out of the time period, and of course the Rust in Peace album, probably Nick Menza is probably, when I think of Megadeth drummers, that's probably the first one that comes to mind. Um, but man, yeah, again, the list goes on, and I try to broaden, my horizons as far as possible. So when I was in school, I became a big Buddy Rich fan, and then of course if you're, exposing yourself to that, then you find, Gene Krupa and Max Roach, Louis Bellson, um, you know, so it's almost like, from all these different genres of music, there's all these different greats, and everything I can expose myself to, I try to absorb something from it. I find myself going in phases where, like lately, I've been on a Bonham phase, a Bonham kick. You know what I mean? um, and I've got my videos that I want to do, so I've got my playlist that I'm always working through, my practice list. You know what I mean? And so that has of course, the big four stuff, but the other things I try and throw in. Throwing an Elvis song, and because Elvis had some really good drummers. He had, I mean, an artist like that commands and deserves top-notch talent, so their backup bands, have some really good talent in them. Um, Nico McBride from Iron Maiden, his Four Limb Independence, is just, it's not fair, what I mean? But you know, he's so good too. Um, Steve Gadd, uh, man, like I said, it's, Dennis Chambers. It's everybody I could listen to. I've often find myself watching some of these guys, and then just being, sometimes I'll just start laughing. You're like, man, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? How does the guy do that? You know, but it's cool to sit down and be like, all right, how does a guy do that? You know what I mean? And see, if you work at it enough, maybe you can do it too. So, yeah, lots
One,
of influences.
I would say one would hope. So, but I would say the
Yeah.
'80s, because I know you did like some Slayer covers and a couple of Metallica ones. Those ones are always fun to play.
Oh
I think
man, yeah.
I think Charlie Benante's got a little bit of the edge because I think I would have a hard time doing Caught in a Mosh, to be honest.
You know what? That's on my list, but it is one that you know, uh, it's going to take some time to work on. He definitely is. He might be. him. I would say him and Dave Lombardo are probably the most talented of the big four drummers. He is definitely, like you said, he's over the edge. He's so precise, very powerful, and machine-like tempo. And then some of the patterns he comes up with can be like a little confusing and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely he is really good. Cotton and Mosh, yeah, that's on my list, but it's definitely one that'll take a lot of refining before it's definitely ready.
Well, they would also say he was the grandfather of the gravity blast from the song Milk, for instance. And I think it was because it was really quite by accident. And that was when you're doing like kind of like a drum roll with like one hand, and then like you're probably doing like that whole thing. It's like I think I've seen some like do it like on like the head of the snare or like the rim shot where that would be. And then they just twist it back up and down, kind of going back and forth, kind of like this.
Yeah.
In a way.
Well, yeah, I've seen that. When I try to do it, I kind of try and think of it as like doing like a double stroke roll, except one hand is like on the ride. It just kind of like, going back and forth. But that's definitely, to be able to do it continuously for, even 3-4 minutes, that's some stamina, you know what I mean? So
that's why those guys in the technical metal community always do it as a warm-up practice. So
yeah, absolutely.
But I can see why. Huge props to Charlie Benante also stepping up to the plate to fill in Vinny's shoes with Pantera. So I guess so let's jump into that, and then we'll get to some fun questions right after that. So what do you think of the whole thing with Pantera now with Charlie Benante and Zach Wilde filling in Dime and Vinny's shoes?
Well, I just from a musical standpoint, obviously since those two are gone, I mean, if you're going to do anything, you're going to have somebody else. But Zach Wilde and Charlie Benante, that's top tier talent. I mean, I'm not a guitarist, but goodness, I mean, just look at Zach Wilde's pedigree and and where he's been. But as a drummer, I mean, you couldn't ask for much better than Charlie Benante. And for that type of music, you might not be able to ask for better. So I feel like it's a really cool opportunity to see some very talented musicians, playing some, really awesome, heavy music that otherwise you'll never see live, and they didn't go out and just get some guy, to fill that spot. They got top tier, well-known talent. So as far as like the politics of the situation, the personal history between the original members of Pantera, I mean, you could have your different points of view, on, whether someone's just cashing in or whether someone this or, how well they got along at the end anyways. For me, that's something that, we as fans, we can talk about all we want. We can never know for sure. And it's not for us to decide, So as far as for being the surviving members of the band, who are most likely the legal owners of the music, I mean, for them to go out and do it again, hey, I mean, I can't fault them for it. And like I said, they definitely didn't skimp on the, supporting musicians. It'd be great just to see Charlie, just to see Charlie. That'd be a great experience. You know what I mean? Let alone to get to see him play Pantera songs. So yeah, I'm all for it.
I'd say it'd be enjoyable to watch, but I feel like did you have to name yourself Pantera? That's the only thing that kind of bugs me in a way. Because I mean, like hell, that's a hell of a group right there. That's a super group you got right there. So
yeah, I was just going to say that there's some bands over the years that if it didn't become such a familiar thing for you to say, if you stopped and thought about what, that's a weird word, or that's a weird, name or something like that. So, yeah, I do remember, Pantera being like, okay, and then hearing them and then being like, all right. So.
Yeah, it's more so along the lines like Vinny and Dime were the ones who really formed the group. They just found Rex
Right.
and Phil and there you go. There was your group. So
Yeah.
and I feel like, especially when you see like some of the interviews with Vinny, I feel like he would have considered that an insult, to be honest. Unfortunately, but to like still use Pantera and like you got Phil and Rex using it, especially when they had like such disagreements, like way back when. That's just me. I mean,
exalted.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? And
I'm sorry, I missed that question. I did miss that question. What'd you say?
You feel that he would be insulted.
I feel like he would, and I feel like okay, but I don't know really what to do. But it's like you guys got to sell this behind the stage, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? And that's like I said, that's definitely a valid point. You know what I mean? But for me as a fan, you know what I mean? And like I said, at the time I wasn't totally aware of all the, I kind of had stopped listening to him for a while, and so I wasn't totally aware of all the infighting, I guess you could say. Yeah, a lot of people, have valid points about why they're not, fond of it, or why they feel, it's insulting. But like I say, yeah, I don't know. It's just for me, it's cool to see Charlie and to hear Pantera live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again.
So, but we'll digress on that too. It's always best to talk about it too.
Yeah.
Makes an interesting talking point, nonetheless.
Yeah. So. No, yeah, you could spend a lot of time on that too. So.
Yeah. All right. So, Mike, we've reached through the questions here pretty good, and we're down to the fun ones. So, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, start with the first one right here. I guess first off, do you drink by any chance?
I not so much anymore. Back in my my band days in the 90s and stuff like that, we did our share of partying, you know what I mean? And as an adult, I'd like to have a sip on some whiskey or something like that, but anymore, the after effects don't seem to justify the buzz, you know what I mean? So I drink less and less.
I see. But for this question, what is your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
You know what? Alcoholic, I always liked, Johnny Walker Black Label Scotch. Nothing beats a good glass of bourbon, and non-alcoholic, it's kind of weird because being a type 2 diabetic, and there was a lot of diabetics in my family, I grew up drinking diet soda. So when I was little, I was a Pepsi guy because I like Diet Pepsi better than Diet Coke. But now we have Coke Zero, which tastes way better than, Diet Pepsi. So I guess, anymore now, in my older days, I'm a Coke guy, good old, just regular Coke drinker.
Good man. I would say I prefer Coke, but every now and again I will enjoy Pepsi, but it's because the restaurants forced my hand to try Pepsi.
Yeah. I mean, in a pinch, I can adapt. So
survive, adapt, and overcome.
That's right.
There we go. Yeah. That's all good. But I guess if you've been sober for a good while, you just every now and again, whenever you feel festive, do you drink?
It's been a few months, but in January, I'm scheduled to go on an ice fishing trip with some buddies. So, the first night when everybody goes out to eat and everything like that, I might have a couple drinks maybe, but we'll see. Because like I said, I might get one down and then be quickly reminded why I haven't, been drinking. You know what I mean? So you never know. But it would definitely be a circumstance like that, like a special occasion, I guess you could say. You know, I mean, there's no plans to.
I was gonna say he takes one sip and he's like, oh, that's why.
That's right. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
Okay.
that's entirely possible.
All right, that's good. But I have been noticing your shirt, the Infinity Gauntlet. Are you real big into Marvel?
Marvel and DC. I've always been a Batman fan primarily, but you can't, help but like, the Marvel movies. And I remember, when this was a storyline in the comics, me and my buddies would run up to the local drugstore and be like, all right, the latest issue's out, and then go back and, to our little, kind of hangout area. And then we'd all sit there around one comic and read what was going on. So then when Marvel started making their movies with Iron Man, I was like, oh yeah, this is like being a little kid. And then I was like, hey, wait a second. I started noticing little ticks in the story. And I thought, that sounds kind of familiar. I was like, I wonder if they're not, heading towards something bigger. And then, of course, obviously it ended up where they were. So I was like, wow, this is like, oh man, like a childhood dream come true that I didn't even know I had. You know what I mean? So when the Infinity War and then Endgame came out, I was all about it. Yeah, so that's always been one of my favorite storylines. Was the Infinity War storyline. So
yeah, I do remember the Infinity War when me and a friend went to go see it. Unfortunately, I didn't like watch the whole thing in chronological order up until that point. So unfortunately, we weren't too familiar with it. But I was like, damn, the bad guy won. Thanos won. So
that yes, and that was I of course knew that was coming. And I remember when that happened in the comics, when basically, everyone dies, it was just like, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. That never happens, the bad guy never wins. And so when it did happen, I was like, wow, there it is. I even expecting it was still had quite an impact. And I remember like younger children in a theater, just bawling their eyes out, and I felt bad for them because I thought, man, I know how you feel right now, and I just wanted to be like, trust me, it'll get better, but you just can't. So you just got to feel sorry for the kid thinking that this is how it ends. Then when Endgame happens, conversely, I had a wonderful experience watching Endgame. There was a family behind me, and there was a little boy who, he's probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And then at the end of the movie, when all the characters come back, and Spider-Man especially, comes swinging through that portal, the little boy just burst out in happy tears. And he was like, Daddy, 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 And I could hear the dad saying, see, I told you he'd come back. I told you he'd be back. And I thought, you know what? That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. That boy's so happy that Spider-Man is still alive. You know what I mean? It's like his every prayer was answered, So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I can see why too. Actually, unfortunately, we didn't see like any little kids there, but there were a couple of annoying teenagers when we were watching it who were like talking while the film's talking. It's like, dude, we just shut the fuck up, that sort of thing. So
I was spared that. Believe me, when it comes to a movie like that, I'll take a little kid who's into it over a uninterested teenager any day.
Yeah. I was also gonna make a joke, say like when the bad guys win, it's just a temporary high when they probably smoked a good amount of Mary Jane, and then it comes crashing back to reality. Oh, yep, they're
Absolutely.
back. Then we got our butts whooped. So
pretty good analogy.
I say the Thanos is it's come and get me. I was always gonna say come and get me, bro. That sort of thing.
Yeah, that was actually from the comic. So that was pretty much I think it was the cover of I think it was the third issue, but I can't remember exactly. But it was right before the big fight where all the heroes die. So yeah.
I see. All right, that's cool. For the next two of the fun questions, they kind of deal with drum covers in a way. But the first one, was there ever a song that was too tough for you to play? Did you either give up or did you come back after a while to finish?
Well, there's I mean, there's a lot of songs that I found to be, really, really difficult. Another part of this whole journey lately with, just being, enjoying being alive and playing, I've decided to really push myself, so I've gone back to songs that were intimidating, as a kid or as a teenager, or even 5 years ago. I've tried to go back and tackle them, like songs like, "Afraid Ends of Sanity," or anything off and Justice for All is challenging. Slayer songs are challenging. I so I've come back to a lot of those, and I kind of try to feel like, if I work at it, if I practice, you know, I try to feel like, like there's almost nothing I couldn't play, and then you run into something, like that Mike Portnoy did, and you realize, okay, wait, there is something I can't play, but I mean, but that's just part of the fun. It's just seeing how close to it you can get. So there's Wasted Years by Iron Maiden. That's a tough song with the hi-hat accents opening and closing, but then the straight 2 and 4 on the bass drum, everything's going at a different time, so it's really, demanding a 4-limb independence, so that's a song that I hope to one day conquer, Eyes of a Stranger by Queensryche, that's kind of difficult. I put that down and then come back to it, and I feel like if every time I come back to it, if I can get a little bit closer, then hey, I'm at least headed in the right direction. My wife wanted me to play "Fool in the Rain" by Led Zeppelin, and shuffles are hard anyways. Shuffles are hard for me, like the Rosanna Shuffle. I that would take a lot of work to get all the ghost notes right and everything. And the same thing goes for "Fool in the Rain." That's a difficult shuffle, and and he's so steady and consistent with it that that's one that all right, I'll try that one again. I got a little closer. You know what I mean? And I'll try it again sometime down the road. So there's actually just like a constant list, ever growing, ever changing, of things that I try to push myself with. I try to get better at, and sometimes you got to put it down for a while, and come back to it later. What I mean? You'll start pulling your hair out, So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff, things that really, push 4-limb independence. That's the stuff that's really challenging and fun. So.
Yeah, amen to that. I know what you mean too. Especially as metalheads too. We got to at least back away whenever a song's having trouble. So
yeah, absolutely.
Doing that. Makes life so much easier. Okay.
Yes.
But I guess out of the songs you list, or perhaps songs you've done right now, I guess which drum cover do you love the most, or I guess have planned that you think you'll love the most?
Well, I mean, it's been such a process to where like each of my videos have, I feel like I've improved in one way or another. I've added a camera angle, or I've just plain gotten a little bit better as a drummer, or the audio learned more about audio, so the drums sound better. So it's almost like each one I do, like each newest one is like my favorite one right now, because it's usually, an example of, my latest abilities. Some of the ones I'm proud of, like as far as a technical drumming ability, "And Justice for All" is a demanding song, the length, and everything. I did a Breaking Benjamin song, "Natural Life." It was a request, and I hadn't heard it before, so it was particularly challenging. And that was quite a challenge. That one took me like 3 months to learn. So I'm proud of that one because of the technical ability. and it was definitely something I had to learn and work on. Um, but like my latest couple of videos, I feel like the sound has really, really improved. Um, you know, it's almost like where I was at the moment. Like my Inamorata video, I'm really proud of because at that time I had just taken a big step forward in sound and in audio and video, and plus 72 seasons had just come out like 3 weeks prior. So I was really proud that I had, listened to a 10-minute Metallica song and then memorized it, to where I could play it in 3 weeks. So I was proud of that one. But then again, that was 6 months ago. So it's time to move on to the next challenge. You know what I mean? Um, so those are some of my favorites. And like I said, each one gets a little bit better, and that's really what I'm shooting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Metallica had some pretty tough ones back on the Injustice for All. I know Blackened that I mentioned earlier, that one was a tough one too.
That is a
That
tough
was
one.
that was the one where the snare fell apart.
Yes.
So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that one's a relentless beat. So yeah, I can see how you would bust a head on that one.
yeah, actually, I think I thought it'd been like 6 months to a year already, so I wasn't too sure. So not too sure, but yeah, that whole one right there. I think the other ones are pretty fun, but I would say Dyer's Eve and Disposable Heroes are his toughest ones to play.
Yeah, you know what? I would actually, God, I would think I'd have to agree. Dyer's Eve, I think tempo wise is like the fastest Metallica song. I think it's like 186 or something like that. Um, but with all the constant double kick, I mean, it's relentless. But yeah, Disposable Heroes, man, the first time I tried to do that, I was like, wow, I felt like a child. I was like, that's a really difficult song to play. So yeah, no, I think I would agree. Those are probably about the two hardest Metallica songs.
Oh yeah, trust me, I burn a good sweat doing each one of those, especially just fucking around, to be honest. So
Yeah, just to see how close you can get.
I felt pretty good actually with Disposable Heroes, but I'm not trying to note for note. I'm just kind of goofing around, to be honest, just doing my own thing. So,
Right. Okay. Well, that's cool. I mean, you know what? Basically, if you could pull it off live, then hey, you could start and end. You get all the way through.
that would be nice, but it's a pipe dream at this point, so we'll see what happens. All right. And for the last of the fun questions, what would you consider as your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
Well, because of like my list of videos, um, I don't have a long drive to work, so most of the time I listen to is like, back and forth to work or, mowing the lawn or something like that. So a lot of times I'm listening to like what my next handful of videos are what I want to be, and just kind of listen to those over and over and over. Um, I had mentioned Inamorata as a newer song. I really, really fell in love with that song because of the subject matter and also because of the old Black Sabbath kind of feel, it has to it. I listened and since I had to learn it, I wanted to learn it. I listened to it like 100 times, but man, favorite songs is that's a tough subject. I'm always good for anything off of Justice or Puppets, what I mean. But the songs of different styles. I mean, there's some really good stuff out there. I mean, I'll even bust out a Celine Dion song or something like that once in a while, just because of the amount of energy into the the performance, I mean. So I tell you what, Apple Music has a thing where you can see what you listen to, and my wife makes fun of me because mine never changes. It's always the big four, and then one more band. You know what I mean? So I'm always listening to a lot of Metallica. I'm always listening to a lot of Big Four. You know what I mean? One cool thing about Metallica is that they're still putting out newer material. You know what I mean? And some of the, newer stuff is really, really, fantastic. Every band has that one album that you know, uh, they can never top. You know what I mean? If you ask me, Megadeth will never top Rust in Peace. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having, a magnum opus. It's actually something you kind of shoot for. And, so like I said, I think it's cool that there's different eras of bands that you can listen to, like Megadeth and Metallica, where, they sounded like this in the 80s, and then they kind of sounded like this, and then now, they sound like that. And, there's good stuff throughout. So no matter how hard I try to broaden my horizons, I'm always just going to come back to, being a heavy metal guy. So, like I said, give me some Big Four, some 80s thrash.
Yeah, actually, Megadeth's recent material with Night Stalkers and what was it? The Sick, the Dead, and the Dying. I thought was that one. And shoot, I'm trying to remember what the other one was. It was I could always picture it too. It kind of went back to the old gruesome days with the lyrics, for instance, because I think like Good Morning and Black Friday were like the more intense, gory kind of songs that Megadeth actually had put out. To be honest. That's actually what the song reminded me of too, and I know I'm going to hit myself stupid for not remembering it, to be honest. So,
and I could probably sit here and look it up real quick, but off of, and Dirk Verbeuren is a pretty crazy drummer, and when Chris Adler, the album that he did with Chris Adler, that was a heavy, chug chug chug, kind of album. So yeah, Megadeth. Really feels like Dave has kind of, regained a certain kind of, distorted edginess, you know what I mean?
Yeah, until he keeps it up too. But I think the problem with Metallica me these days, it's they kind of backed away from their sound that they did from their first 4 albums. Oh, so even though there might be a little bit there, it's not like that speed or even the nice little dynamics they used to have. So
you're absolutely right, and the breakdowns and the acoustic parts and stuff like that. They'll never top that, and they never quite regained it. But in the last 2 albums, anyways, last 3 albums, with Death Magnetic, you could see that they had kind of regained a little bit of former glory at times, and there's some moments of greatness in there. But no, definitely not, anything since those first 4, like you said. There's some good stuff. Load is a good album. There's some stuff, good stuff on there, but they backed off of like a lot of the speed for a while. And regardless of what their reasons were for it, the Black Album, commercially speaking, is like one of the more significant heavy metal albums, ever. But look at David Bowie. He reinvented himself, how many times, and had how many albums that sounded completely different from other albums. You know what I mean? And when he's well regarded as a genius. You know what I mean? So I don't fault a band for trying different things or trying different angles or trying to alter their sound. Some bands, artists like David Bowie are successful, and then other artists end up with the snare drum on Saint Anger. You know what I mean? It's not always a success. But I can't fault them for trying something different. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that they have kind of come back a little bit to I guess you could say, their roots. You know what I mean? But Metallica was always about trying to, incorporate different ideas and different sounds and stuff like that. So I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that they did change their sound a couple different times over a 40-year span. You know what I mean? So things do happen. Every band has a clunker,
Yeah, But I digress on that. But I will say, you do sound like the guy who would be blasting Enter Sandman going into school. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. So, Mike, we're almost out of time right here, but we are down to one more question. Before we jump into it, did you have any questions for me or anything you want to say before we jump into it?
You know what? Well, I mean, first of all, thank you very much for reaching out to me and for offering me this opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. And you seem like a really, really great guy. And obviously, from looking at your channel, like you're one of those guys that spends, half of your time trying to, promote other people. And that is very, very commendable. I mean? So just the fact that you're willing to put all this time and effort into helping other people promote themselves, that says a lot about you. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity, and I thank you very much. Hopefully, maybe a collaboration is in our future, or hopefully, we can work together in some way. So, thank you.
We'll have to see. I think I got a good list right now. In fact, I did mention about the indie community I had before. It was actually got a couple in the works right now, so we'll have to see what happens.
You know what? I'm not planning on going anywhere. You know what I mean? So, I'll be around, and I'm still, like I said, I've only been doing this for about a year, so I feel like I'm still just kind of learning the ropes, anyways. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, that's cool. It is something I'd like to do someday, though, is collab with somebody. You know what I mean? But hey, man, like I said, I'm here for the ride. I'm having a good time on the process, so I'm just appreciative to be here.
I would say since you're part of the big four, I would say maybe we could look into something like that, but let's leave it to be determined for now.
Yes. Sounds good.
All right. But right now I got a whole bunch on the list to deal with, but I'll keep you in the thoughts too. So.
No, yeah, fair enough. Like I said, I'm not going anywhere.
All right. Sounds good. For the final question here, Mike, you might have harped on this a little bit too, but here's how it goes. Given what COVID has done, obviously you've been pretty blessed not to be affected by it too much. So, but others, obviously, as you know, weren't so much. So what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world? Got getting deep and philosophical at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I tell you what, this was something that nobody really alive had ever dealt with, that type of experience. And it seems like we're having to deal with stuff like that more and more, as a species, you know what I mean? So, gosh, I mean, I tell you what, the corny stuff like believe in yourself and work hard, never give up. There's a reason why that stuff is kind of cliche, because it's all really true. You really do need to believe in yourself, and you really do need to never give up. One thing that I learned over the last handful of years is that bad times, good times never last, but bad times don't either. So even though you may, there's times of, lean, and times of plenty. So, things may be rough, but you will always come out of it. You always come out of it. You always can find a way out, and you can always find some way to better yourself and to grow from the experience. So enjoy the good times and don't despair in the bad times, and never give up on yourself. Never give up on yourself. So I would say that's probably it.
Spoken like a true prodigy.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries, Mike. All right. So, Mike, we reached the end of my podcast right here, and boy, oh boy, did we almost talk for 2 hours, actually. How do I look at it, too?
Yeah, I'm known for, or I guess I've got a habit of that. So
I think once we start breaking down the barriers, he lets go of his introvert C sort of attitude, man.
That, what, that's a very, very astute assumption there. Yes.
That was the same way with me too, even though most of the people on the other side are supposed to be doing most of the talking. So it's all good.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a conversation. I feel like a good interview is almost like a conversation. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess how else can people reach you? Are you just strictly on Facebook and YouTube, or I guess what other social media are you on?
Facebook, YouTube. I'm on Twitter or X, I guess.
The same thing.
And yeah, Twitter, and then Instagram. Um, Mike drop drum covers on everywhere, and then Facebook. It's like my regular page from 10 years ago, so it's still just Michael Linn. But then I think it says like works at Mike drop drum covers or something like that. So yeah, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Mike drop drum covers. So stop by, give me a like and a sub, or however that goes.
All right, that's along those lines. But actually, that's my part. Right. Those are my lines. I gotta say those lines. Okay.
Oh, all right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, here's how it goes. All right. So everyone, my guest today was Michael Linn, aka Mike Drop Drum Covers, on his YouTube channel. Make sure you go hit up on the socials. Go check out his covers and everything too. This guy's making wonders out there. The best of luck on your journey going forward there. I know you talked about the surgery earlier in this interview, so wish you all the best going forward. Hopefully, it's the last and final one. So,
thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Thoughts and prayers to you. And God bless.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mike, you stay safe. Rock on. Merry Christmas.
All right.
And stay tuned, y'all.
All right. You too, brother.